Hello again. This is the card that I want to play with today. Now the first thing I did was to take some really nice, really smooth, super white card to stamp on. Now I'm going to use 3 images straight away, and I'm going to use Memento ink pad, which is water based, because the Copics are solvent based. So because I don't want the line to bleed, you have to use a different solvent for your ink as your colouring product. So this time it's a water based ink with, like I said, a solvent-based colouring product. Okay, so that's the first stage. Second stage is to use your Spellbinder dies. I love this. This is one of the label sets. I'll pop the information. I'll put the information on the Copic numbers, as well as the number of the die I've used, because it's one of the labels. I just can't remember which one. I don't get out much, but even I'm not that bad to memorise each number of the labels, but I'll put them on the blog. So this is what I've done, is I've put it face down. I would then put a little bit of low tack tape on a couple of the edges, run it through your machine. So run it through once to cut and once to emboss. Next thing I wanted to do was to make it look a little bit aged. It looked far too new, brand new, bright white. So what I did was I took some old paper distress ink and some cut and dry foam, and while it's in the die, just go ahead and apply your ink like this. Oh, I've put a little bit of blue on there, but we'll pretend that didn't happen. Just go ahead and apply it while it's in the die. And what you'll find is, it's like stenciling where you think there's hardly any colour there until you lift it out. And what you've got is this really nice, if I take that card away, you'll see it's got a really nice white border. So it looks like you've already done an extra mat on there. Place your die on top of it and take a pencil and draw around the outside of the area. Just go ahead and draw. And actually, if you use a hard lead pencil, as well as drawing, you're kind of embossing, and it makes it easier to cut out. And then you've got a nice extra mat on there. Now we're going to move on to some colouring using the Copics. I've already started. You can see I cheated there. I've used a very pale brown colour, but like I say, I'm not going to get hung up on talking about the exact colours while I'm doing the project, because I'll list them on the blog. But I like to start with the lightest colour and then go ahead and use the darker colour for shading. So for example, I've started on the chocolates using this kind of colour brown here. And then I'm going to go ahead with a darker colour and then just go ahead and pick some shape out of the side, so they look like they're a little bit irregular and they've got some shading around them. And if you look closely, I have drawn the images so that there is a little bit of a suggestion of either little dotty kind of flake things on the top or ridges on them and things, so there is some help there for you. And we'll colour that one there, and we'll colour that there. So that's kind of the chocolates, that's all. Now the ribbon, I'm going to start with the lightest shade of green, and I'm just going to go over the whole thing. And this one here, where I kind of splodged it with a little bit of pink. By the time I get all the colour on there, you'll not even see it. But I am speed colouring here, I hope you realise. They really do blend well together. You don't get those lines, and it's actually got a chisel tip on the Copics as well. I always just seem to use this bullet point brush tip. I can use it with a light pressure and get a really fine point, or with a little bit heavier pressure, and it's kind of like using a paintbrush. So that's the base layer. Then I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of this darker tone here, just to add a little bit of shading on it, especially in the dark areas. Now some of the projects I've coloured, like the Santa and things for the header, was a lot more complicated, a lot more colours in there, a lot more time consuming. But it doesn't have to be to get a great result with these. Just, really, a couple of colours sometimes will give you enough shading. Because I do want it to be kind of a dark green ribbon, but just a light green highlight. Let's go ahead around the edges. Around there's going to be a bit of shadow. It's going to catch the light there. And here, a bit of shadow there. That should be about okay. And then you can go ahead again and either use a lighter green to blend them, or use that same light green you just used, just to soften the edges so that it doesn't look as hard where the lines got kind of left off. You'll find that when they're wet, they're a little bit darker. they dry lighter, sort of thing. And moving ahead, you can see here, this is the finished card, and what I've used here is a large stamp set, which is this image that's also on the plate, if you can see that properly. And I stamped that using bundle sage on some backing paper and just coloured it in a little bit with the ink. And there you go, few little dotty pearly embellishments and florals, and you're good to go.